Oh, are we live? I think we might be live. Oh, good. I've never done this before. I guess we're live. First episode, Hot Take Friday. I know that this is going to be. Hey, I'm just trying to make sure that stuff is happening here. Got to get on here. Let me share this to a few people. Share this a couple places. See if we can. 2 concurrent viewers. All right. Say what's up if you're in the chat. Sorry, I'm looking down at my keyboard trying to get this thing going here. Let me copy this link. Share Hot Take Friday out in the studio, out in Facebook land a little bit. See if anybody joins. Just hanging out in the studio. Got a few hot takes for you. I mean, I'm just really having fun. I guess they're not that hot. Maybe they're hot. Some of y'all think they're hot, I guess. Oh. Join me, people. Hot Take Friday. I'm sure you want to know all of my opinions. I'm sure Facebook's going to love me sharing that. Okay. Hot Take Friday. What's going on? We got some people watching. Got some folks watching Hot Take Friday from the studio. We're going to talk about some stuff. Of course, you saw the title. Kemper Suck. Pedal price gouging, and synergy amps. I want to talk about a few of those things live from the studio. If this is, if you're just joining me for the first time, if you've never seen this YouTube channel before and you're like, who's this idiot slamming Kempers? Let me just briefly jump into a little bit about me, a little bit about Matt McQueen. This is my studio. I own this place. I own this building. I share the space with Matt Goldman. It's an old church that I converted into a studio. Started converting into a studio about 7 years ago. And, I kind of just started making records here. It was just a hobby at first, and I just would charge people a little bit of nothing. Just whatever could keep the lights on and stuff like that. And it grew and grew. And then eventually I quit my full-time job, and now I'm a full-time recording and mix engineer, and then do some freelance gigs outside of the studio on the side with live sound and stuff like that. And so nearly 3 years ago, it'll be 3 years in March, I met Matt Goldman, and he and I became friends, and we moved some of his gear in here, and so now we share this studio space, and times are good, times are happy. And so that's a little bit about me. I've been playing guitar since I was 15, I guess, and started experimenting with recording when I was in college in about 2002 or 2003. There wasn't much really on the market for like home studio stuff. It was all really expensive to get in there, but there was a few things. I built my own computer and things like that, and it was a hobby from basically 03 till, I don't know, I'd say probably roughly 2009 or 10, something like that. And that's when I got my first Pro Tools rig and started kind of learning this, and it stayed a hobby for a real long time. But so I've got all of my experience mostly in stuff that has real drums, real guitars on it, nothing that's like programmed or stuff like that. I don't really do pop music or dance or hip hop or anything like that. It's mostly country, rock, southern rock, hard rock. I don't do much metal. I don't even know, other than maybe a few mixes. I've certainly never produced anything that I would call metal or anything like that. And my favorite things are pedals, amps, and guitars to buy. I have a pretty sweet collection of guitar amplifiers here at the studio. You can see a couple of these are for sure my 2 favorite that are sitting back here beside me. One is a 1978 JMP Master Volume Mark II. So it's a 50 watter, and below that's the Friedman BE100. Those are 2 of my favorite amps that I own. I'm really into the Marshall sound for rock stuff or distorted stuff, but I also love, I feel like not enough people probably talk about this. Everybody wants the chimey Voxy thing or the glassy Fender thing, but I think personally Marshall is the best clean sound. So there's hot take number 1 for you. I think Marshall has probably one of the best clean sounds, and everybody talks about Marshall for being like the rock and roll thing. But man, listen to all the like, gosh, I think a lot of the cleaner sounding guitars on Appetite for Destruction. They sound fantastic, and I would bet Slash is for sure using, you know, the low sensitivity input on a Marshall with the gain down and the master up. I just think that's such a great, much more interesting sound and clean sound than you know, just the really clean Fender kind of high headroom doesn't break up kind of a sound. Not that that's a bad sound. That's a fantastic sound as far as sounds go. And there's, you know, I've made a bunch of records with that sound on it, country stuff especially, that's got sort of a 90s flavor to it. The deluxe reverb or a super reverb or a twin, you know, set really clean with a lot of reverb on it, and a Telecaster. That's a great sound too. But if we're just saying what's my favorite, I think Marshall's way more interesting. I think a Marshall set clean is so much more interesting than a Fender. So there you go. There's hot take number 1. Hot take 1. So who's out there in Facebook chat land? I see I've got a couple of viewers. Obviously the channel's small, it's growing, we're trying things, so I knew there wasn't going to be a ton of viewers on here, but it would be cool to have some interaction from y'all. So if you're out there, you know, drop me a little comment. That helps the algorithm, gives us something to talk about, have a little fun, stuff like that. I'm gonna go ahead and share this to my Instagram too, if I can. I don't even know if I can do that while I'm talking live. So we've got a few people watching, 6 playbacks. I don't know what that means. I'm new to the whole YouTube live streaming thing, so sound good? Hey, can you explain how you use your Yamaha console in your workflow? Only on the way in? Are you mixing through it well? Yeah. Let me share this to Instagram, and I'll kind of try to touch on that while I'm figuring out how to do this share to Instagram thing. So yeah, I'm not mixing through the Yamaha at all. The console is just a front end to Pro Tools, but it does a few things. Right now, the biggest thing that I would love to have in this console that is not on here is not hooked up. It can do this. Is there's 4 buses that we could use for summing, and so I've got the cables back there, and I just haven't wired them into the patch bay yet. They're plugged into the back of the console, but it would be cool to be able to capture multiple mics. For example, on like the kick drum, I use 3 mics on the kick drum, and it'd be cool to be able to sum that down to 1 channel on the way into Pro Tools and just commit the blend of the three microphones. I think that'd be a real special sound. Or I use 2 microphones on a guitar cab basically all the time, and so being able to sum those and just, you know, commit the sound that I'm getting. Usually what I'll do is I've got 2 of these 7th circle pre's. I don't know if you can see them on the camera view or not. I've got 2 of these 7th circle pre's over here. Yeah, I guess you can. Look at that. Okay, so they're kind of a 1073 thing. Those are sort of my go-to, my starting place for guitars, and especially distorted guitars. Sometimes I'll use the console, but it'd be cool to sum those together and commit. Usually I'm blending, you know, between the 57 and a ribbon mic or something like that, and just commit that blend on the way in and not have to fool with it later would be great. But the main thing that the console is for is it's got a lot of channels, and these Yamaha consoles are super affordable, and they're highly modifiable, very easy. I didn't really know anything about electronics except for, you know, wiring up guitar pickups or something like that before Matt brought this console up here, and have learned how to roughly read a schematic. Not very good. Definitely not able to troubleshoot outside of, are we getting signal through here, because these 2 things should be connected. But have learned a little bit about electronics, have desoldered hundreds of components on this thing, and built basically it's basically an API, like an inductor based EQ, and replaced all the stock EQs on the first 16 channels. And I've got 8 more that are built, but those channels they're not in yet. Haven't put them in just because it's hard to find time sometimes when you're working and trying to make things happy. So Roel, I hope I'm not botching that. That's how we're using the console. It's basically just a front end to Pro Tools. Gives us some really good sounding mic pre's. They're real punchy. They got some weight to them. Definitely something different than like the Summit mic pre's over here. Some of these 7 circles are like a really clean, like no transformer kind of thing, and so the Yamahas are, and they're also different. They're different than these 7 circles for sure. So, yeah, using it like that basically as a front end, and then the EQs are real sweet sounding. After the mods, they were cool sounding before, but they're really nice. They got a really wide bell, and you can just crank the snot out of them, and they sound really good. So that's how I'm using the console. I don't really want the little screensaver thing going in the background, so sorry. What else we got? Anybody else got a question? Thanks for your answer. I have an M1560 myself. Oh, cool, yeah. So this is the M1532 for everybody that's kind of, wondering what we're talking about. This is the M1532. These are a monitor console. They've got an op amp, big op amp in them that's similar to the API 2520. They've got transformers on the inputs, and then we've got Cinemag transformers on the direct outs before it goes to our audio interface to the antelope converters that we have over here in this rack. That's kind of where that light's sitting. That's where that's at. So, what else can I tell you about this? Yeah, so I've got this 1532 here. This is Goldman's that he bought, and then there's actually another 1532 sitting out in the hallway, and then I've got a 1516 at my house. And I guess we're going to mod a couple of more of these things. We might try to sell them. There's a video on the channel about it. I want to sell the 1516 once I get it modded. There's no reason for us to keep it, but they're great little consoles, and they're easy to work on. So, yeah. So let's talk about some hot takes here. I said this is going to be a hot take Friday. Kempers suck is the first one that's on my hot take. I don't know. That might not be that hot of a take. Like I was saying earlier, I've got a nice collection of guitar amplifiers that I really like. I like using real amps. I think I've actually made some records with a Kemper. So I guess I can't preach too hard that they suck, but I've made a few records with the Kemper, and the tones are fine. The thing about the Kemper that drives me bananas, though, is that, like, one of the things that I'll do is, like, you pull out an amp, and I know this Friedman really well. It's one of the amps that I start with for, like, rock guitar kind of sounds or anything that's kind of overdriven. And I've had it for 6 months now and used it a ton, so I feel pretty familiar with it at this point. And so, I pull it out and I know the kind of sound that we're going for. It's easy for me to get from what's in my head to what I want it to be like when I get into, when it's once it's captured, right? And so with the Kemper, for sure you could find sounds that were, what you liked and what your go-to was. It's easy to do that on the Kemper, but the thing about this that I love is that, once we start working on a sound and with a particular guitar player and a particular guitar, especially with people that are either playing my various guitars or bringing their own, you've got little adjustments to make, and so you kind of know your starting point, and then you tweak it a little bit to get it to work for the song or the part or whatever. And the problem with the Kemper is that you just have to, I don't know, to me you just have to cycle through presets, and either you find it or you compromise, because if you start turning the treble or you start turning the presence, you start adjusting the gain, you have a really small window before it just falls apart, and it's just not, it doesn't sound like what a guitar amp sounds like to me anymore. It just kind of gets it gets weird sounding. I don't know how to describe it. But it's not, I don't feel like the Kemper is like this. I can come over here, and if I really want it to be like searing bright, I can turn the presence way up, and if that's what I'm going for, it works. But with the Kemper, it's like, the presence is here on the profile that they captured or whatever, and if you go like here, it's okay, but if you go here, like from 6 to 6.5 or 7 might be usable. Once you get to 8 though, or if you're trying to turn it down, you go from 6 to 5.5, 4. That might be fine, but once you're past that, it's like donezo. It doesn't work that good anymore, and it's like, it's super frustrating to me to try to use a Kemper, because you can get pretty close to the sound, but it's like you just, Now, what would it be great for? I think the Kemper is great for, you know, are you in a band, you're running, you know, you've captured all the songs for your record and you want your live show to sound like that, and you want it to sound like your record in your in-ears, and you profile the amp sounds while you're making your record, and then, you know, you've got the sounds that you recorded right there with you on stage, and night after night your in-ears are going to sound the same. That's probably great for a Kemper. Or that's probably one of the greatest benefits from a Kemper, I guess is what I'll say. But to use it in the studio, you know, I think it would also be great for, like, if I profiled one of my favorite sounds from the Friedman and I could just use that over and over again to get guitars done really, really fast. I liked using the Kemper for that, but man, I way more prefer like a much more organic approach to finding sounds, and I want to spend time, you know, with microphone choice and with pedals and with trying different guitars. And so to me, a real amp just makes way more sense, and that's why Kempers suck. So there's your hot take on Kempers. We ready for more? Who's ready for another hot take? You suck. Is that Curtis? That's got to be Curtis. Jacob Leeser. Curtis, is that you? Why is your name Jacob, you ding-a-ling? Hey, you know what? Here's another hot take for you. This one's free. I didn't even plan on talking about this. Talking about modelers and in the studio, the Kemper seems to be the thing that everybody loves. Dude, I'll take a Helix day after day. Now that I've had both, I've owned a Helix, I've owned a Kemper, I've mixed both live, I've used both to make records. I'd take a Helix all day long. So, there you go. There's your hot take. I'm posting this to Instagram. What else we got? We got 5 people watching. I'm feeling pretty good about this. So, Hot Take Friday is a success right now, I feel. I'm just putting this out on Instagram. I should have done all this before, I guess, but whatever. It is what it is now. Got to make that big. Let's make it. There we go. Hot Take Friday. All right. Another hot take for you, bro. You're making me so happy. This episode was all for you. You were my inspiration, Curtis. All right, let's talk about pedal price gouging. This is an experience that I had yesterday. This is my hot take. So I'm scrolling through Reverb yesterday. I'm looking for this new Chase Bliss Automaton pedal. I'm thinking about unloading a couple of pedals and buying one was kind of the thought that I ended up having. You know, because I thought, man, it's really cool. Moving faders, super versatile pedal. Would be great, you know, to have a bunch of sounds like, you know, and it's all analog, have a bunch of things that are kind of saved, but you're, you know, super tweakable, and the faders, the moves, and it looks really, really cool. And I sort of wanted one. So I went to Reverb and I found out, man, these are like sold out basically everywhere, and there's a bunch of people selling used ones for more money than a new one costs. But then I started scrolling and I was like, well, this doesn't make sense, because I found 2 stores that had over 10 in stock on Reverb. And so, and this isn't the first time this happens. I remember this. I remember this with the Timeline, like 10 years ago when the Strymon Timeline came out, or maybe it wasn't 10 years ago, but it was for sure years ago. Strymon Timeline comes out and they, you know, small batch, sell out super quick, and then immediately a bunch end up on Reverb for $50, $100, $150 more than Automaton stands for automatically draining your bank account. For sure it does. $750 is no small amount of money. No, hot take. Ableton is greater than Pro Tools. That's a hot take, but it's also a stupid take. Curtis is my friend. He's on the channel, so I can make fun of him harder than I can make fun of some of the rest of y'all. But yeah, dude, I think that's so stupid. Like, I get that the market dictates it to a degree, and that, you know, that supply and demand, and you can sell it for a little bit more. But here's where I got sort of like, I sort of did it as a joke. I posted it to this Facebook group, and it was sort of just like trying to just be funny. Like, look, I told this guy, like, your pedal, it's, you know, it's overpriced. How about, since it's used, you sell it for a normal price, because they're in stock everywhere. So, you know, I get it if it's totally out of stock, but once they're back in stock, like, dude, you're on Reverb. quit trying. Don't just live and die by the gouge, bro. You know, pull your price back a little bit. I think it's so silly to just leave it up there. You know, this pedal is $1,000 is what this guy's trying to get out of it. It's still on Reverb too, even though they're in stock at stores. And that's crazy. Like pedal gouging the price of guitar pedals is insanity to me, and it's not a great way, I think, to be a part of the community. Great way to make some money, I suppose, but I think that's just so lame. So there you go. There's hot take number. I guess that's hot take number 3. So we had a bonus one there at the top. Man, I'm still just aghast at Ableton is greater than Pro Tools. I guess it's probably greater than Pro Tools if you're, you know, making fake music, but I like to record real drums and guitars, bro. So there you go. There's a hot take for you. All right. The last thing that I wanted to talk about today, because we're rolling up on 20-something minutes here on this live stream, and I sort of just did this to, you know, to have a little fun on a Friday and in my spare time, and I don't want to spend too much time just draining society with my opinions about stuff. But let's talk about Synergy amps. Has anybody that's watching, have you used a Synergy? Have you tried a Synergy? Have you looked at any of the demos? Because I think they're particularly killer. I tried one last night, and that's my hot take, is that it's you know, Synergy amps are not real amps, but they rule. I guess it's a real amp. I mean, it's probably not a fair thing to say, but basically, okay. Let me see if I can drop a link. Andrew Isaacs says I've never heard of them, so it's this cool thing. You probably heard of do you remember the Randall MTS stuff, Andrew? Synergy amps are basically the 3rd generation of that. So this was started by Ignator probably 15 years ago or whatever. It's this whole like modular amp thing where basically you have a power amp, but then the preamp is detachable. So there's anybody that wants to we got to play on one. They seem rad. Yeah. So the preamp is just a module that you can slide in and out, and then the power amp sort of adapts to the preamp for basically, you know, what the different type of the amp is. And so they've got all sorts of things. They've got Bogners and Diesels and Fryettes, and they've got like Marshall Plexi clones and Basemans and all the popular stuff in basically preamp form. And you just buy the power amp, or they've even got like a little desktop unit, and you slide the thing in, and so you can, you know, you've got this 100% analog. There's no digital stuff in it or anything like that. 100% analog guitar amp, and you can, you know, for $400 you can have as many of these different sounds. And the coolest thing about Synergy, so Randall did this, and I played a few of the Randall amps. Never played the Ignator version, but what's cool about the Synergy version is that Synergy ended up striking deals with all of these different companies, and so it's the actual manufacturer. So it's like literally a Bogner Ubershaw preamp that has been made and designed for the Synergy amp chassis, and they've been around for a couple of years, I want to say, but they're just now starting to get like kind of popular. And I played one last night. I played the Fryette Pitbull. My friend Nate has one. I think we're going to try to get a couple more and get them on the channel, and I think next Saturday Nate and I are going to try to do some demos, play through some guitars, and test these out and kind of show you what they sound like, and so probably put some content on the channel about them. I was legit impressed with it, and I guess this is sort of the other hot take that goes with that, is that I thought that if you wanted to spend, so let's say the powered version of a Kemper is what, I think $2,000, $2,200, something like that. So with this, so you could get for I think $12.99 you can get the 30-watt head, and you'll have 3 channels. It comes, every amp, like out of the heads, they all have a clean channel built into it. So you don't have, that's not modular, and it's just like your basic clean channel. If you crank it up, it does get a little bit of like that broken up kind of voxy sort of thing, but set it sort of like a normal level. It's clean. It's kind of does the clean Fender kind of a thing, but it's definitely good. It's a good tube amp clean sound. And it's got an effects loop on it, so you can add reverb and stuff to it. The amp doesn't have any reverb built in. It's got a good sound and effects loop, but then you could you put one module in it, and the module has 2 channels on it also, so you could have 3 channels, and you would have basically $399 for the module, $1299 for the head, so you're looking at like $1,500-$1,600, and you're still coming in cheaper than a Kemper. So you could buy a second module and have 6 different amp sounds, basically. No, 5 different amp sounds. The clean channel plus whatever 2 modules you had. Each one has 2 channels. So you'd have a bunch of sounds and be less than a Kemper, but have a real amp. And what it does that's cooler than the Kemper, to me, is that when you are turning the knobs on it, because it's an analog amp, it works exactly how you'd expect. You turn the presence up, you get more presence. You turn the treble down, you get less treble. And it just works great. So I'm thinking about getting probably one of the synergies for here and getting a couple of modules. Nate, my friend, he got one. We're going to try a couple out. There's a couple that I'd like to maybe get the Morgan AC one. See what that sounds like for kind of like a Voxy thing. So we'll see. I don't know. I definitely want to have them on the channel. Try to use some of the stuff. Synergy into 2 notes on a pedal board. Tube snobs travel rig. Right? So Adam, that's one of the things that I want to do. I'm actually, if I get one for here, I don't think that I'll buy the head version because I have so many amps already. 5150's got 6L6s, all the Marshalls have EL34s, the Friedman and the 5150 both have effects loops. So what I'm thinking about doing is just getting the one channel, or one module desktop unit, and slaving it into my Friedman or slaving it into my 5150, and so then using the amp's power amp, but using the Synergy as the preamp. And you know, that if you've got a real amp but you wanted a few other flavors, you could have that for, I think again, the modules are like $399, but you can find them cheaper than that if you just look around. Sweetwater has them a couple for like $350. They're like beat stock or open box, and then the little 1 unit, 1 slot desktop thing is like $399. So sick stuff. I think it's cool. I'm a fan, and it was on my mind, so that's why I wanted to talk about it today. And you know, next week we'll film some content and hopefully get some stuff up on the channel soon talking about Synergy amps. But they're rad. So you all have been wonderful. I got way more comments today than I thought that I was going to get, and had, you know, a few people viewing, so that's good. I think we'll keep doing this. You know, I'll try to think up some more hot takes for next week, and we'll do another hot take Friday. But all right, I'm gonna take off. Go hang out with my wife and kids. Y'all be good. Have a good weekend. See you next time.